Okay, we're starting the class today. Welcome everyone. Today we are speaking about honoring your parents, and today's class is dedicated Le'ilui Nishmat Rafael Hai Ben Esther. Tonight is his Yortzeit, his Годовщина со дня его смерти. 7 Kislev. Today we're speaking about honoring parents, and we're going to give a summary. I'm not going to cover everything, just brief points. Okay, today we are learning about honoring parents. Le'ilui Nishmat Rafael Hai Ben Esther. So the Torah says, honor your father and your mother so that your days will be lengthened. So we know that the honoring your mother and father has a great reward. The reward is that your life is going to be long. And the sages say, what does it mean your life is going to be long? Not only in this world, but also in the next world, which means when we speak about long life, we don't mean that you're just going to live another year longer. At the end, everyone is going to die. When we say long life, we mean it's so long that it never ends. That means we're referring to life in Olam Haba, in the next world. That's really long. Anything that eventually ends cannot be long. A 95-year-old person looks back at his life and he says, oh, life went by so fast. I didn't even have a chance to notice it. I wish I could have had more. I don't want to die. So when you look back, any amount of life is short. So when we say long life, we mean spiritual world, Olam Haba, Gan Eden. So how do you earn Gan Eden? One way, the Torah says, honor your parents. So that's what we're here for. How do we get that great reward, eternal reward? So, but notice the Torah says, honor your father and your mother. In another place in Torah, in 10 Commandments, it says, a man, his mother and his father shall they fear. From here we learn that there are two commandments. One is to honor your father and mother, and another one is to fear your mother and father. Now, the question is, before we speak about how to honor and how to fear, the question is, why does the Torah say, honor your father and then mother? And it says, fear, be afraid of your mother and then father. Why by honor it says father first, and by fear it says mother first? And that is because the Torah always tells us what is harder for us. Who do we honor more? Who do we love more and we want to take care of more? It's usually the mother, because she takes care of us. She loves us. And so it's easy for us to honor our mother. We love her. With father, sometimes he yells at us, sometimes he hits us, he's tough. So there is not so much love. And so it's harder for us to honor him. And that's why the Torah says, honor, and we'll see what honor means. Honor your father first, because that's harder for you. Mother, you'll honor anyway because you appreciate everything she did for you. But when the Torah is speaking about fear, who is it easier to fear? Your father. He's the more strict one, usually. So the Torah tells us, honor, fear, be afraid of your mother first. Because the father you're going to be afraid of anyway. But you have to also be afraid of your mother. That's going to be hard, and that's what you have to work on. But really, honoring and fearing your father and mother is equal. You have to fear and honor your father, and you have to fear and honor your mother equally. Now, the Torah also says very scary thing. One who hits his father or his mother shall be put to death, which means there's a death penalty for somebody who hits his parent. And the Chachamim say, the sages say, that that's only if you cause injury or a black and blue mark, signac, or you cause blood to come out from them. You cut them, poke them, or hit them so hard that there is black and blue mark. That means the blood goes out from capillaries. The capillaries are broken and assembles under the skin. So in all these cases, the person who does it with witnesses, he deserves death penalties. That's how serious it is to hurt a father or mother. But the Torah goes even further, even more scary. It says, one who curses his father or mother, God forbid, shall be put to death. Not only for hitting a parent, there is death penalty. For cursing a parent, there is a death penalty. Imagine that, how careful we have to be with our parents. And another pasuk, in another verse in Devarim, in Deuteronomy says...
Hi, Rabbi, this is Evelina.
Yes.
I have a question. Should we let's say, should we... I'm sorry, it's echoing.
Echo. Maybe
should we focus on like the Torah first and then respecting our parents? Like what goes first?
Okay, that's a good question. I'm going to address that. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so the verse in Torah says, in Deuteronomy, honor your father and mother so that your days will be lengthened and so that it should be good for you. Which means not only you will have long life, and as we explained, in the next world, because you're honoring your parents, but also it's going to be good for you in this world, on the ground that Hashem, your God, gives you. Which means when you honor your parents, it's going to be good for you in this life and in the next life. So a question is asked. What comes first? Keeping Torah or honoring parents? That's a very good question, because sometimes they conflict. For example, a parent might say, can you please turn the light for me on Shabbat? And the child will say, but father, but mother, I learned that we're not allowed to turn light on Shabbat. And they say, yes, but the Torah also says you have to honor your father and your mother. So the child has a question. What should I do? Should I follow Torah command and honor father and mother? Or should I follow the Torah command and keep Shabbat? That's a very good question. And another verse in the Torah, it says, this is in Vayikra, in Kedoshim, a man, his mother and his father shall they fear, and my Shabbat they shall keep. I am Hashem, your God. What does it mean? From here we learn that God says, yes, you have to fear the child's God and the parent's God, which means just like the child is obligated to listen to God's command, so too a parent is obligated to listen to God's command. And therefore, the parent cannot ask the child to go against God. because the parent himself has to listen to God. And that means the child is supposed to listen to his parents no matter what. But if there is a conflict between what the parent says and God says, God takes precedence. Why? Because the parent also should drop everything and go serve God, go listen and fulfill the commands of Hashem. But here, there are some exceptions. For example, if what the child wants to do is a stringency, which means it's beyond the letter of the law, and the parent is asking him not to follow the stringency, but just to follow the letter of the law, then the child has to follow the letter of the law and not do the stringency. Which means that a child is, it's important for the child to learn what is really halacha, which you cannot break, and what is extra, what is a more strict opinion, what is a custom, what is just a nice thing to do when possible, but when you cannot do it, you don't have to do it. Because if you don't know the level of mitzvot, of commandments, it's going to be hard for you to choose when you have a conflict. For example, if there is a mitzvah to do which is from the Torah and a mitzvah to do which is from rabbis, you have to first do the mitzvah from the Torah and then the mitzvah from the rabbis. Or if you have a mitzvah from the rabbis and then you have a custom, you have to first do the mitzvah from the rabbis and for sure the mitzvah from the Torah and only then the custom. For example, the custom to celebrate Yoshvo, that's a good custom, supposed to be continued. But the law that you're not allowed to drive on Shabbat is from the Torah. So a person might say, you know what? I have a very important custom to fulfill. I have to go to the synagogue and say Kaddish for my father, or I have to serve Sudah Shlishit, Kiddush, to remember my father. But it's far away from me, so I'm going to drive, because this custom of Yoshua is very important. So here he's making one little mistake. It's true that the custom to remember your parents is very important, and you have to say Kaddish, and you have to serve food so that people can make blessings. But driving on Shabbat is forbidden according to Torah. And therefore, I have a conflict. I want to fulfill the custom by transgressing the Torah law. That I cannot do. Torah law comes first. So what do I have to do? If I cannot walk so far, then I just sit at home and I just learn Torah. I say good words about my father. I speak well. I don't say Lashon Hara. I don't get angry. I eat kosher and I do other things. And through that, my father gets aliyah. He gets his neshama, his soul rises in heaven. But if I transgress a Torah commandment in order to fulfill a custom, I lose more than then the child should follow the parents' advice. Now, let me give you an example. A very common example. The parent tells the child, it's cold outside, put on your hat. And the child says, oh, it's warm outside. I'm not going to get cold. I'm not going to get sick. Should the child listen to the parent or not? So Here, it depends. Here, it depends on whether it is really cold or not. If it's cold and there is a possibility that the child might get sick, the child is obligated to wear a hat, both because the parents asked and because you have to take care of your health. We're not allowed to do anything that will damage our health, which includes we're not allowed to smoke, we're not allowed to take drugs, we're not allowed to even go to sleep late, to eat unhealthy junk food. All these things we're not allowed. So therefore, if a parent says, don't do something that is not healthy, we have to listen. Because even if the parent doesn't ask, we still have to do it, because we cannot do something that is unhealthy. But what if really it's not cold outside? Let's say the parent didn't go outside, they don't know. They say, oh, it's cold outside. And the child knows she just came from outside. It's very hot. But what do? Your parent is telling you to put on your hat. So in this case, the child is supposed to listen to the parent as long as the parent sees the child. This is a tricky halakha. Listen carefully. If the parent asks something of the child which really is not good for the child, he's going to sweat and going to be very uncomfortable, then the child should put on the hat, go outside, and when they're not in the view of parents, then they're allowed to do what's good for them. Then they're allowed to take off the hat. But again, here every person has to be honest with themselves. Are the parents correct in what they're asking? And if yes, then the child should listen. Or are the parents saying something that's going to damage me? Then you don't have to listen. But you should not argue with the parents. You have to say, yes,
Hi, Rabbi. I have a question. Let's say your parents are saying Lashon Hara. How do you tell them to stop saying it respectfully?
Very good. So that's a good question. In order to answer this question, we have to learn a little bit about the laws of honoring parents and fearing the parents. What does it mean, honoring parents? So honoring parents means you have to serve them, take care of them, give them food and drink, dress them, escort them, help them to go on their way. Honoring parents means that when your parent comes into the room, you have to rise up if you're sitting. These are things that are called honoring, showing respect. What does it mean to fear? To fear your parent means you're not allowed to sit in their place. To fear a parent means if they have a chair that they always sit on, let's say on the side of the table, then the child is not allowed to sit on that chair without their permission. To fear a parent means that if there is a sit in an armchair or in a couch that they always sit on, it's their spot, then the child is not allowed to sit there without permission. Fear parents means that a child is not allowed to walk into their bedroom unannounced without permission. Fear means that the child is not allowed to lie on the bed of the parents. Fear means that we're not allowed to call our parents by their first name, even if they give permission. Even if your father says, it's okay, you can call me by my first name. Not allowed to call him by their first name, because you have to fear them. Fear means, and that now we're coming closer to your question, fear means that you cannot contradict them. If they say something, you cannot tell them you're wrong. Not only that, You cannot even confirm their words. If your father says, oh, right now it's 60 degrees Fahrenheit outside, you cannot come along and say, yeah, you're right, it is 60 degrees. Who are you to tell your father that he is right? He doesn't need you to tell him that he is right. So a child not only is not allowed to contradict a parent, he's not even allowed to tell the parent that you're right. Now, what happens if your parent makes a mistake? What happens if your parent says something that is wrong or is an aveira, is a sin, like lashon hara? What do? Or if your parent wants to break Shabbat, what do? On one hand, we have a mitzvah to stop another Jew from sinning. On the other hand, you have a mitzvah to honor and fear your parents. What should you do? So the answer is, you have to figure out a way to speak to them respectfully, which means you cannot tell your parents, hey, what are you doing? Not allowed. You cannot say that. Or you cannot tell your parents, stop, it's Shabbat, you're transgressing. You cannot say that. So how are you supposed to speak to your parents? What you're supposed to say is, you're supposed to say, Mom, Dad, I learned that in the Torah it says that we're not allowed to do such and such. Which means you are hinting to them. You're respectfully informing them, in case they forgot or in case they didn't know, you're respectfully informing them of what the law is. Yes, you have to inform them, but respectfully. Because we have a rule. One Jew should not do a sin in order to save another Jew from another sin. So, if your parents are desecrating Shabbat, chas v'shalom, you cannot transgress your mitzvah, do a sin on your own in order to protect them. Because the same Hashem that told them not to break Shabbat told you to respect the parents. So you cannot go against God in order to save someone from going against God. So you have to make sure that as a child, even if your parent is wrong, you have to be patient, you have to be respectful, and never say directly to the parent, you're wrong, what you're doing is wrong, you're sinning. All these expressions are forbidden. You have to only hint. I heard, you can ask it as a question. Doesn't it say in the Torah that we're not allowed to light fire, to cook, to say lashon hara? And the parents will say, you're right, I forgot about it. So this is an example that even if they are sinning, you're not allowed to disrespect them. And certainly, if they're not sinning, how much more so we have to give them respect. Not only that, even if a parent embarrasses you in public, we have to have strength of character to remain calm and respectful. Just because someone embarrasses you, they do a sin, yes. But doesn't mean that now you should do a sin and start saying lashon hara and start disrespecting them. They did a sin, that's enough. God, chas v'shalom, will take care of their account. Don't transgress yourself. Be strong. Whether it's your parent or someone else that embarrasses you, stay quiet. Not only that, even if the parent damages your property, you have to stay quiet. You can take them to court afterwards, and the Beit Din, the Jewish court, will require them to pay for damages. But while they're doing damage, they're breaking your utensils, they're ripping your clothing, you have to stay calm and quiet, because you cannot transgress in order to save your money. You have to be willing to give up all the money in order not to sin, in order not to transgress. What happens if a parent is mentally sick, hard to deal with? Then the child is allowed to hire someone else to take care of them, because it's so dangerous to disrespect a parent that it's better that someone else should take care of the parent, a professional, than the child should take care of the parent and get angry and lose their cool, not have enough patience, and chas v'shalom, God forbid, to say something disrespectful or to hurt a parent, chas v'shalom. So if necessary, it's better to hire someone, to pay money so that you don't sin. Okay, now, just like we have to honor our parents, we have to honor our step parents, which means if our father or mother remarried, we have to honor their wife or their husband, because by honoring their spouse, we are honoring them. Also, to a lesser degree, we have to honor our grandparents. And to a lesser degree than parents, we have to honor our older siblings. And we have to honor anyone who is older than we are. But of course, parents get the highest respect, then the grandparents, the step parents, older siblings, and other elderly people. Why do we have this mitzvah? Why do we have to honor parents? And there are a few reasons. One of the reasons that we have to honor parents is because without them, we would not be alive. They gave us the greatest gift of all, life. Even if they didn't take care of us, even if they gave us up for adoption, even if they were not so nice to us, we still have to be thankful to them and respect them, because they gave us life. We wouldn't be alive, we wouldn't enjoy the food, the sky, the marriage, our own children, if not for our parents. Just the fact that they gave us life, they deserve all the respect in the world. And that's the halakha. If a parent dropped the child by internat, детдом, foster care, adoption, and from the moment they were born, they didn't know them, and then 20, 30 years later they came, and now they want respect, you as a child have to show them the same respect and show that you fear them as a good parent, because their behavior doesn't affect your obligation. You are obligated to honor them. That's a mitzvah in the Torah. It doesn't say honor your father and mother if they're good to you. It just says honor your father and your mother. That's it. Doesn't matter if they're good or they're bad, you still have to honor them. What happens if a parent passes away? The mitzvah to honor them does not stop. Why? Because we can honor our parents even after their lifetime. An example is making a yoshva, getting people together and showing that we still remember our parent or our grandparent. We still respect them enough to speak nicely about them, to try to raise their soul, to make blessings in their merit, to listen to Divrei Torah, to try to work on our character, to become better people in their honor, in their merit. Another part of respecting parents even after they pass away is always speaking good about them. Whenever you remember them among family, friends, always having good words to say. If there was anything negative, you just be quiet. Right now, there is no purpose in it anymore. You're not going to change the person because the person died already. So from now on, you cannot say anything negative about the deceased. You only say good. And by speaking good about them, and how do you speak good? You look through your life and you say, what can I find good about this person? Maybe one time they gave me a ride. Maybe one time they bought me a toy. They cooked for me. They washed my clothing. They took me to school maybe once in a while. They gave me advice. They gave me money. There's always good things that the parent did. Even the worst parent, you will find thousands of things that that parent did for you. And both in their lifetime and after their death, we have to show them respect by concentrating on the good. Forget about all the negative, only think about good. Even by thinking positive thoughts about your parents, you receive the mitzvah of honoring them. By saying, I'm happy that I had parents like that. They raised me well, or they gave me good genes, or the fact that they gave me life. I appreciate my parents. Thinking well about them, speaking well about them are all mitzvah of honoring your parents, and certainly doing for them. Now, I know people are asking questions in the chat. I'm going to get to them. I know people are impatient and I don't want to lose them. So let me address that now. When the person is married, who is he obligated to listen to first, a wife or a parent? And what happens when a person is married? Who does he obligated to listen first, their wife or their parent? Anyone else wants to ask the same question? So, since so many people want to ask the same question, I'm going to speak about it. Now, here, there is an important idea to remember. Both for the husband and the wife, after they get married, number one person in their life becomes their spouse. We learn this from the Torah that says, Al ken ya'azov ish et aviv ve'et imo v'davak be'ishto. A person has to abandon his parents and connect to his spouse. From here we learn that a man and a woman, once they get married, their first priority is their spouse, and then their parent. Now, we're not speaking about disrespecting. Disrespecting, you're not allowed anyone. But we're talking about who should you listen to first. And if your wife asks for something and your father asks for something, you have to give it to your wife first and then run to give it to your father. If the husband asks something and the father or the mother of the wife also has to listen to the husband first and then to the parent. But that's only if it's not possible to do both. If it is possible to do both, you have to do both. You should not use the excuse. Now, a good example is your parents are visiting you for Shabbat and you are cutting bread. You said, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, you cut the piece, you ate. Now, who do you give the second piece to? You have your father, your mother, your father-in-law, your mother-in-law, and your wife. Who do you give the second piece to? You give the second piece to your wife. But that's only if you have one hand. but you have two hands. So who do you give first? You cut two slices, and you take two pieces of bread, and you give one to your wife and one to your father. Then you cut, and you take two more pieces, and you give to your mother and your father-in-law. And you cut, you give to your mother-in-law. And then you cut more, and then you give to all the children. So this is an example where I can do two mitzvot at the same time. I'm respecting my wife, which is Shalom Bayit, and I'm honoring my father. Why father first? Because we have a rule. If a father and a mother ask the child something at the same time, then the child listens to the father first. Why? Because the wife also has obligation to serve the husband. And therefore, by serving the father first, the child is doing the mother's job. But that's only if they are married. If chas v'shalom they are divorced, then they are independent. And therefore, let's say your father and your mother are sitting at the same table and they are not married, then you can choose whichever one you want to give. It's up to you. There is no mitzvah, the father or the mother. Only when they're married, the father comes first. When they're not married, mother and the father are equal. Okay, so again, the spouse comes first, but a good advice is for the, let's say we're talking about the husband. If the wife asked him and his parents asked him, as far as the husband is concerned, he has to take care of the wife first, and then his parents. But as far as the the wife is concerned, she should be smart and she should allow the husband to serve his parents first. Because if she does, then the husband will love her, that she's not putting him in a difficult position, and her parents-in-law are going to love her. A person is allowed to forgo his respect. A person is allowed to forgive his respect. A person is allowed to say, you know what, even though you are obligated to respect me, but I'm willing to give it up for the sake of someone else. So for example, the wife might say, oh, it's okay, give to your parents first, or go help your parents first, I'm gonna wait. If the wife does it, she is smart, and her husband is lucky that he has such a wife, and she will have a better life, because again, her husband and her parents-in-law are gonna love her. But if she really does need it, she really needs help with children or with the household, or she's not feeling well, then for sure she comes first. Okay, thank you for your question. This was a very important question. And again, remember that shalom bayit, peace, is number one. And everybody has to be smart. The parents should not force their children too much. Oh, you have to do it for me. Oh, you have to do it for me. Because what if it's hard for the child? And the same thing, the spouse should not be so harsh, because if a person is stuck, this one is demanding and this one is demanding, and it's very hard. No matter where he goes, as they say in Russian, shak vprava, shak vleva, yes, rastrel. So don't put another human being in such a position. If you see that he's being pressured, whether he's being pressured from his parents, whether he's being pressured from his spouse, whether he's being pressured by his boss at work, or by his clients, or his children, whatever it is, make it easier for him, help him. So a person has to be smart. Okay, so now let me continue just a little bit. Another exception, if a child, for example, a boy wants to learn Torah, and parents say, no, we want you to go to work. So this is another example where a child is allowed to say, my dear parents, I love you very much. I respect you. I appreciate everything you did for me. but this is very important for me. I feel that I need to do this for my parents. Want them to marry for money. They say, oh, he's a dentist, he's going to be a better husband. And the girl says, no, but I want somebody who has good character traits, somebody who knows Torah, who's going to be observant, who's going to be a good husband and a good father. Then the girl is allowed to not listen to her parents. But you have to be, again, honest with yourself. Do I want to marry that person because I asked advice and I thought about it and really he's good for me? My parents just don't recognize it. Or I just am infatuated, I'm in love, I think it's going to be good, but I don't really know. What do I know about life? And I just want to go against my parents. So in such a case, a child has to listen to their parents, because choosing a spouse is one of the most important decisions in your life. And many people suffer afterwards, and there is no good way back. Once you make that choice, it's not good to go back, unless it's emergency. So before you make such a decision, ask advice. Ask your rabbis, your mentors, your parents. Speak it over. If your parents for some reason don't understand you, ask your rabbi to speak to your parents. Don't fight, don't argue, because it's a very important decision in your life. You understand that the decision is up to you. Only the person himself can make the decision who to marry, but at the same time, it's smart to listen to advice. So that's another example where a child is allowed not to listen to parents if he knows that what he wants is better for him. Now, if a child hears that somebody is saying lashon hara about your parents, or somebody is embarrassing your parents, even though the parent is not there, a child is obligated to stand up for their parents' respect. Unless you know your parent that they don't want fight. Yeah, let's say you know your parent and they are very humble, peaceful, and they would not get embarrassed, they would not get upset. They're very loving and kind, and they don't wish bad to anyone. And it would even hurt them that you went to fight on their behalf. In such a case, you respect your parents by not fighting. You can say, you're saying something that is not nice towards my parents, but I know that my parents would not like me to fight, and therefore I'm staying quiet. Okay. Now, we said that a child is supposed to get up when a parent comes in. And it's good for the parent to allow their child to rise up. Ideally, the parent should not say, oh, it's okay, you don't have to rise before me, because you are taking away mitzvah from the child. If a child rises before you, they get long life, they get parnasa and hatzlacha. How can you take it away from your parent, your child? But if for some reason the parent knows that it's hard for the child, or let's say the child is learning Torah or praying, so then the parent can say, it's okay, you don't have to get up when you're studying Torah. You don't have to get up when you're praying. You don't have to get up when you're eating. But otherwise, it's good for the child to get up in front of the parent. Okay, now I will take questions. If there are any questions, you can either type them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask Anyone has questions? Everything is clear?
Everything is good, Rav Binyamin.
Okay.
We all enjoyed.
Okay, I'm happy. So, Bezat Hashem, everything we learned and we take into real life should be zichut, should be aliyat nishama for Rafael Chai ben Esther.
Amen, amen.
Bezat Hashem, and may we all always hear good news from each other, and may
Amen.
everyone healthy, and hatzlacha to everyone.